Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of HomeTech. I'm Seth Johnson, joined as usual by Jason Griffin. Jason, how's it going, man?
It's going great, Seth. I feel like there's a big load off with episode 100 behind us, and really excited to be sitting down for episode 101 with you. Feels
101 good. HomeTech innovations. I don't know where I was going with that, but it sounds like a movie.
Yeah. Well, you know, burnt up a lot of brain cells producing last week's show, so I can totally understand.
It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing episode 100, and I'm glad we're sitting down for 101, and I'm sure we'll be talking about episode 200 before too long.
Yeah, I was really happy with how it came out, and if you're listening and didn't happen to catch our 100th episode, jump over to HomeTech.fm/100 and give it a listen. We went back into the archives and put together a home tech highlight reel, and it came together great, and really enjoyed it. And so anyways, let's move on. Got episode 101 here, and a bunch of stuff we want to talk about.
Yep. First, we want to kind of hit our tweet shout out this week. This is kind of one of those things we try and do from time to time when we get interesting things from people through Twitter or through our Slack channel. And I think this one came through our Slack channel, right?
Yes, this one did.
Yeah, so this one came from Mark Childs in our Slack channel, and it's a story that was a couple weeks old now, but we thought we'd bring it up because it's an interesting one, and one that will be near and dear to our hearts because another standard has been born, Jason.
I'm waiting for it. There it is. I couldn't step on the bell.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, this story is a couple weeks old, and we just weren't able to weave it in last week because obviously we had episode 100 and had our plates full with other things that we wanted to touch on, but felt like this was a story that was important enough for us to circle back to and discuss briefly. We've got the OCF, which is the Open Connectivity Foundation, and Mike Wolf had a great piece on this, and that's the piece that I will have to reference in terms of where I got really all of my information on the story as far as some of the implications of it. Mark Childs was kind enough to put it up in the Hub, which is our Slack channel, as you alluded to. And very big story. Like you said, though, this does call to mind a cartoon that you and I have referred to before, which is that internet meme about how you solve too many standards.
Yep, and now we have another. One to bring them all together. Actually, this one is kind of neat because it is this OCF, they actually bought, I guess, if you can buy the rights to a standard. They have UPnP built in, and it looks like that's kind of UPnP is kind of like the big old granddaddy universal plug and play. Like I remember this from back in the Windows days when I was actually using Windows computers, and UPnP was going to save us all, and I'd be able to plug in a printer on my network, and the computer would find it, and the drivers would be installed, and it never worked at all. And the other big And the other big thing I remember about UPnP was that it opened ports on your router and left you completely vulnerable to like attacks and whatnot. I think all that has been solved over the past decade or two. But OIC or OCF or OIC, whichever one you want to call these people, they have UPnP, which is just one of those granddaddy of standards that's out there.
Yeah. So my understanding of this is that OIC acquired UPnP a while back, and now the OIC is essentially merging into and becoming part of an even larger umbrella, which is the OCF. And the OCF contains some pretty big names. I mean, we're talking about companies like RS, Cisco, Intel, Microsoft, Samsung, Qualcomm. So some very big names behind this initiative. And one of the big things that Mike Wolf pointed out in his article is the implication here for all seen and all join, which I thought was very interesting because, as you may know, that was a big initiative for Qualcomm. And Qualcomm is saying that they're going to continue supporting it. Mike Wolf's article essentially points out that he believes this really rings the death knell for all join, which I find interesting. All join was one of these initiatives that on the surface, it seemed like it had a lot going for it, but it was just really quiet. We just hadn't heard much out of them. And I've always been a little intrigued about what's going on over there. And really, this doesn't seem to spell good news for them.
No, and I completely agree with Mike. We've even mentioned a couple of times like how little was coming out of industry adoption with AllJoyn. I think LG was kind of the biggest company that has done at least the most visible integrations with AllJoyn. But I think the concept behind it is great, but it's just too nebulous, I guess, for people to kind of pick up and understand or even care about. So I agree with Mike. It's gone, and whatever these guys come up with next is going to replace everything. And it's a pretty big initiative. So you've got Intel, Qualcomm, Aris, Cisco, Microsoft, and Samsung all going into this. Sounds like a lot of major players, for whatever that's worth.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's the big question: is what is this worth? And I have to be honest, I can't wait for the day when stories like this don't make the front page news, and they're happening and they're important, but they're in the background, which is where I think really they belong. I think that's what the smart home really needs, is for all of this different protocols and connectivity standards need to just become as transparent as possible, so that I, as the end user, don't have to think about it in the same way that I don't have to think about how my, TCP IP stack works to get me out to the internet, right? I just sit down and I connect to whatever Wi-Fi network, and things just happen. And ultimately, I think that's the goal, right? And that's where we need to see these big initiatives kind of moving to the background so that we can focus on end user usability and interconnectivity.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is kind of one of those things that I wish could be in the background today. But, off that list, two big names aren't even on there. Apple and Google, they have their own initiatives.
Yeah, no surprise,
HomeKit
right?
And Thread, I guess, would be Google's version of the internet connectivity standard. So, yeah, like you said, no big surprise. And maybe we'll have three major... there's got to be more. There's so many more. Like you have Z-Wave and Zigbee and Insteon. You have all these other standards of the way things connect still that are still floating out there and still very robust. And Bluetooth. I can't forget about Bluetooth. I mean,
right.
There's so much out there. I wish there was one thing to rule them all, but it doesn't look like we're heading there anytime soon.
Well, and my point is kind of like, I don't know that there ever will be one thing to rule them all, or that we even necessarily need that. It's just that the things need to happen on the back end where I, as a casual technology consumer, for example, don't have to think about it, is my only point.
Yeah.
And so, this is a big initiative and a lot of big names behind it. So we'll be very curious to see where it goes. But on to what I think is a little bit of a lighter topic, Seth. I wanted to have a little bit of fun this week. CEDIA EMEA came out with a Future of the Connected Home quiz. And I know from speaking to you that you have not taken this quiz. I believe it's about 10 questions online. And you have kindly agreed to be a brave soul and do this live on the air.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm starting with question 1. It looks like, what is your name? So...
Here, I'm going to walk you through these, okay? Because I don't want you seeing any answers.
All right. I'm on question number 1.
What is your name, Seth? Well, question number 1 is an easy one. Are you a homeowner, professional, blah, 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 smart home design and installation professional? Next. All right, here we go. Now, before I read this question, I do want to point out, again, that this is CEDIA EMEA, so a lot of these questions have an international flavor to them. And Seth, this is going to challenge you a little bit because these are not statistics about the U.S., all right? You're still up for it?
I can do this. I've got this.
Okay, here we go. How many UK homeowners currently have connected technology installed in their home? Is it 17%, 84%, or 41%?
Well, there's a little asterisk on there, and it says technology that enables devices to talk to each other.
Ah, good catch.
So lighting, heating, and electronic devices that can be controlled remotely. I'm going to pick the high number, 84, because I think there's a lot of stuff out there.
He's going with 84. Drum roll.
41.
41%. 2 in 5 of UK homeowners currently have some form of connected technology installed in their home. I think you make a great point. How do we define connected technology? That's really the key question, but 41% still strikes me as a fairly healthy number. Let's move on here to question number 3. Seth, how many connected devices do you think there will be for every household by 2020? Now, this one's on a little slider, and it looks like you can set it anywhere from 0 up to 20.
So 0 to 20. I'm going to go... I kind of want to go up the middle, and maybe, but a little bit more, I think. So I'm going to go with 12.
He's going with 12, and the answer is by 2020 there will be 10 connected devices. See, you were right. You should have gone right down the middle.
Go with my gut next time.
All right, on to the next one. What technology do you think will be most commonplace in homes in 5 years? Quite a few choices on this one. Appliances that can be controlled remotely, appliances that record energy usage, built-in charging ports for electronic cars, heat sensors, Cat6 wiring, home media services, hard drive storage system in parentheses, intelligent lighting, security systems, or smart blinds. Wow, that's a lot of options.
Some of these are pretty specific. Built-in charging ports for electric cars? I
think we know it's not going to be that one. The thing is, I'm like, it's not really apples to apples because Cat6 wiring. I mean, how do you quantify that?
It's not going to be Cat6 wiring. You just scratch that off right now. That's the biggest joke I've ever heard of. I'm going to go ahead and scratch off smart blinds, home media hard drive storage systems. Those are boring. Nobody wants hard drives in their house. Everybody streams.
It's the cloud, man.
Yeah, it goes to the cloud. Exactly. I'm going to go with security systems just because they're in every single home pretty much.
I think that is a good guess. Let's see. 55%. The winner is appliances that record energy usage at 55%, and they are citing a Digital Homes report.
They need to fire those people.
That information. That's very surprising.
Their second choice on there was Cat6 wiring.
Is Cat6. Security systems down at 41% in, looks like, 5th place. So you've got heat sensors, not sure what that is exactly, and intelligent lighting ahead of security systems. Very interesting. I would have thought security systems would be higher on that list.
This is a very European survey.
Is that your excuse?
It is.
All right. Let's do one or two more here. I don't know how long this is, so we don't want to... Let's see how these go. Number 5, Seth. What do you think is the primary reason for homeowners to install smart technology in their home? Is it cost control of energy, increased home security, cost savings, reduce water consumption, or be greener?
I would say here, okay, so this is where this gets goofy because this is definitely skewing towards the European market. So I'm going to go with control costs of energy because all the other things on there, like water consumption could be one of them too. I would put water and energy in the same.
I think you got a good guess here. Let's see. Cost savings was the highest rated benefit, but they don't specify, because if I'm recalling that question correctly, it was cost energy savings or just there was a more general cost savings.
Yeah,
interesting.
Energy savings. So, I mean, I kind of get where the survey's coming from now. So I think I'll be able to answer the rest of these.
All right, let's keep going. Number 6, what do you think puts homeowners off, which is a very European way of saying turns homeowners off, when it comes to buying/installing smart home technology? Quite a few options here as well. Concerns about reliability, potential impact on the aesthetic of the home, security concerns, meaning hacking, etc., too expensive, confusion on what tech is available, or lack of understanding what a connected home is.
Some of those are the same thing.
There's a little bit of overlap. I would agree with you.
I'm going to go with... I don't think it's security. Obviously, they're not worried about security. It's probably going to be security, but I'm going to go with confusion on what tech is available and what to buy.
I like it. Let's see. The biggest concern is internet-connected tech within their property could be hacked, so it was a security concern. You got to go with your gut, Seth.
Yeah, I should have gone with my gut again.
Man, you're not very good at these multiple choice things. Wow, this next one has like 20 options, so I don't know if I'm going to read all of them to you. The question is, which of the following home technology brands are you familiar with? And it's asking you, it looks like this one is very much geared towards the consumer. Some of the examples on there are the big ones that, as a listener to our show, you're no doubt familiar with: Crestron, Lutron, Control4, etc. So let's go ahead and skip on here.
Yeah, I'm just going to pick the most obscure one, which I don't see Runco on here.
You ready to go there, or you want to do one more question?
No, let's get these questions out of the way. I think there's only 10.
Okay. Number 8. Your client has a budget of $50,000, we'll call it dollars, to upgrade their home. How would you spend it? How would you spend your clients' money? So furniture, decor, smart entertainment / AV, intelligent heating, intelligent lighting, or infrastructure. This is going to be kind of a hard one to say right or wrong. I think this feels more like a survey to me.
Yeah. I would say, I'm just going to put a couple of things on here. I would say I would spend $0 on furniture. Just because I kind of get bored with that.
Right. That's someone else's job.
Yeah, exactly. If I was working on, all right, I just topped everything out. So I'm just doing like a simple house with a $50,000 budget. I would say total house, like whole house audio, a number of zones, not just one, a surround sound, a decent surround sound, and a couple TVs. I would say I've got that at $26,000.
Yep.
Intelligent heating, which I'm not sure that applies to anybody here in Florida, but I will say I would probably spend maybe, a few $100 on a decent controlled thermostat.
Right.
Intelligent lighting, I put $11,000 on there, and infrastructure probably another $7,000 for like a security system and all the crazy wiring we need to put in. So there,
yeah,
that's it.
Those sound like pretty good numbers. That's about right in line with what I would say. The AV kind of being the lion's share of it. I may try to skew a little bit more of that towards lighting if I could. I'm a big fan of intelligent lighting, but I think those are great numbers. Furniture, I wonder if they're including racks in that. So that may be, you may need to set aside a couple thousand for like an AV rack.
Yeah, that's true. I was kind of building, I guess, that into what I would think I would spend in that 26, but I wasn't thinking anything special either. Just maybe a small, maybe Sonos, couple of zone players for Sonos and speakers. I was thinking TVs would be in that budget too, because I like to budget everything in. So yeah, I think those are good numbers.
All right.
26 wasn't
Well,
bad.
here's question number 9, Seth, and this is a very appropriate one for tonight. Seth, how satisfied are you with your broadband speed?
Let's see how many times I can click the negative. Very unhappy.
Maybe you should be asking me, because I would be even more unhappy.
Oh, what a mess. Tonight, Skype has not cooperated. Neither have our internet service providers. All right, moving on.
So the UK government, in response to that question, is apparently investing $1 billion in broadband infrastructure to provide superfast broadband connection to 90% of the UK population by 2016. Good to know. And the 10th and final question, how much extra do you think consumers would be willing to pay for a home that came fully equipped with pre-installed connected technologies? Nothing, and we're just going to do these in dollars, up to $2,000, up to $4,000, up to $6,000, or more than $6,000.
Well, those are actually in pounds, but so you can probably roughly double that.
I can't do that kind of math quick in my head.
Yeah, it's a little bit better these days, but the conversion rate is there. But I think most consumers would be willing to pay around that $4,000 to $6,000 mark. So I'm going to say £4,000 is my answer.
Up to £4,000. 28% of home buyers would be willing to spend more on a property that came with fully equipped, pre-installed connected technology, but it doesn't
really help
tell us the right answer. All right. Well, anyways, that was good. That was a fun exercise. Not exactly what I expected, but I commend CDF for coming out with it. I wonder how many people are actually clicking to it. I think this is really geared not primarily for guys like you and me, but was intended maybe as a tool to create a little bit more awareness in the general public, and be curious to know what kind of click-through they're getting on that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I didn't answer the last question about my info because it would have thrown off their survey. Me being in the States, but yeah, I don't know. Interesting. I think some of the numbers I had may have been low for some of the dealers that you and I kind of work around in the circles that we play around in, because I know guys that don't even touch projects unless they're over 6 figures, and then there's other guys that will just do anything and wire an entire house for, a few $1,000s.
Right. So it runs the gamut. No question.
Yeah, definitely does.
And a little bit different too, because it was, like you said, a very UK based thing. So there are obviously some nuances that would be involved in that, as opposed to maybe a similar quiz here in the US. But I thought we'd have a little bit of fun with that. And I appreciate you being a good sport, Seth.
Yeah, no worries. Well, speaking of spending money, looks like Runco is out of business, huh?
Yeah, this is a big story, and I don't think it was one, Seth, that you were particularly surprised about.
Not at all.
I think you had a couple of opinions about this one, but yeah, it was definitely a big story. This, I would say, represents the end of an era. Runco was a very huge name in projection in the home, and I have a lot of memories working with Runco on a number of the projects when I was living out in Los Angeles, doing some very high-end installations there, and in the home theater environment there was very conducive to selling Runco, and so I have excuse me, quite a few memories working with some rather large and heavy Runco projectors.
Yeah, so do I. I have come across my fair share of Runco equipment in the service field, and I have installed a couple of firms I have been associated with had Runco dealerships. I was never really a fan at all of the product. Now, it looked good, but that's about it. I can't say that I liked anything else other than sometimes how it looked like it was possibly had better finish. Better finish quality than what you could buy off the normal market of projectors and TVs.
Right.
But other than that, I'm not sure what the advantage was, because the equipment never worked right, never stayed working for very long, or was very flaky at best.
Yeah, man, I would have to agree with you there. I had definitely my fair share of battles with Runco equipment, and it's just one of those things. I also will say, in fairness to Runco and in fairness to the company that I was working with at the time, this was a number of years ago, and they have most likely evolved, and one can hope. But at the time, I always felt like I was the guy out in the field who was really dealing with these projectors, and there wasn't, in my opinion, enough attention being given to the engineering and the amount of time that it was going to take, and training really to properly commission one of these projectors. Because these were projectors that were like $80,000 or more, and they were, at least on paper, of the caliber that you would see in like a professional cinema. And we were at times kind of being given these projectors to just go out and install and make them work. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but to a certain extent, I do wonder what kind of the install base of these uber high-end projectors is really out there that's been given the proper attention and proper calibration. And I have to imagine that number would be depressingly low if you were ever to find a way to pull those true statistics.
Yeah, I wonder how many of our listeners actually have heard of Runco. I'm sure most of the integrators have, but I'm sure if you are just an everyday Joe and have heard of brands like Sony and Samsung and Vizio, like Runco is probably not even on your radar. So maybe we should talk a little bit about what they were trying to do with Runco. Basically they were selling video like it wasn't a commodity, right? They were also selling video when it wasn't a commodity. In fairness, they were some of the first early plasmas out there. I remember humping these $20,000 46 or 50 inch plasmas that just weighed like 200 pounds on and off the wall to try and troubleshoot them, and it was a nightmare. But they were high quality when they did work right, when they were calibrated correctly. They looked great. Runco was a very successful company for a number of years. I think a lot of it, there was a certain culture around Runco, and the owner was really known for taking care of his dealers, and it was a kind of a family feel when they'd have these big conventions, and they would throw some of the biggest parties at CEDIA. I never got to attend those because these were during my days when I was out in the field kind of doing the dirty work. So I never really got to experience that portion of Runco, but I do know that it was a big thing, and it was something that made people gravitate towards the company and want to do business with them. And they sold a lot of product in some of the high-end jobs, like I said, that I was working on. But I did have my fair share of problems, and Runco, I feel like, has been on the decline for some time now. Planar acquired them back in 2007, and that was when you kind of felt the magic come off of Runco, and they weren't really this name or big party thrower necessarily that they had been before that. And then Planar was actually recently acquired by another very large, looks like a holdings company. And I suspect that a lot of this just has to do with the fact that they've become part of this huge conglomerate now, and the projection business is tough and requires a lot of resources, and probably looking at the balance sheets and everything, this is something that was just relatively easy to put on the chopping block. Yeah, I completely agree. and there's not much. I think you kind of go back to what you were talking about, like the people that were behind it, and they were basically selling a super high. Well, they were selling a super expensive product when the margins were still there to be like super high margins. So there was plenty of money to throw in parties, and I will say the Runco service was great. Like if you had a problem, you could get them on the phone, and they would walk you through a number of things, and they chip you a new TV if they had to. But they were making the money. And a lot of times
they had to.
Right, but they were making the money to do that. So like But that world just does not exist anymore. And you have a bullet point on here. Is this statement about the luxury market? And I'm going to have to say yes. Like this is absolutely about the luxury market and where the luxury market is headed. And further, I mean, I hate to talk about Crestron again because I'm just kind of sick of Crestron. This explains Crestron's move out of the luxury, out of the residential market, because the luxury market's not very big. It's not big enough for them to support anymore.
Yeah, I can see the connection to Crestron. I think that I don't want to go back down the Crestron rabbit hole because we've had a number of conversations about that story, and I do think that there is somewhat of an overlap here. I think I agree with you to a certain extent about the luxury market is becoming more difficult because lower priced technology is becoming more pervasive. I mean, you can get great projectors now for $10,000, $20,000, and these things used to cost 5 or 6 times that. At the end of the day, though, I do think that there still is that segment of luxury. We still are going to have very high-end home theaters that demand very high-end projectors. There's companies like Sony, Digital Projection. They're going to continue to produce really high-end projectors. I think this was just, to me, it was more a story about Runco lost its way. Almost 10 years ago, I feel like that happened. And this has been a slow and steady decline. I've heard less and less about Runco. Nothing new, nothing innovative, nothing exciting really seems to be coming out of there. And I think this is just clearly a sign that they have decided they need to shift directions. The story mentions that they're going to focus more on video wall technology, which I know doesn't play into the residential space, or at least extremely rarely. And that's going to be, I guess, the direction they want to head, or at least that's what they're saying. And I think, again, this is just more a sign of a company that kind of lost that magic when they got acquired and has been on the slow decline ever since.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can agree with that. Like, I think they always had their shtick, right? I mean, they had the high end wrapped up for such a long time, like the super expensive high margin product wrapped up. But I think what you're seeing from Runco, Crestron, heck, Control 4, Savant, they're seeing a change in the market itself, not so much a change in the company or a company that's lost their way. Like the market has changed, and you have a different set of customers. You don't have baby boomers you're selling to anymore. You have millennials that are going to be spending the money. So like they have different priorities, and quite frankly, sheet metal wrapped around a projector spray painted black isn't going to sell a projector anymore. Like,
ouch.
Well, that's what it is, like you can't do that. The millennials do their research, they figure out what's inside, and they want that. And that's not going to be
point. It's a great point. I will concede that to you. And like I said, I think that luxury is always going to be there, but companies are not going to be able to rely on it the way that they did before, which I think, to come full circle, is the same as Crestron. They'll get a little bit of luxury business out of the top end of residential, but the move clearly indicates that they're not going to rely on it. Runco's not going to rely on it. Even companies like Digital Projection that I mentioned earlier, I mean, they'll get some business out of that top end of residential, but it's going to become if they're going to stay relevant, it's going to become an increasingly small percentage, and they're going to have to come up with solutions either aimed at a down market residential type of solution, or focus more resources on their larger commercial business.
It's interesting you lump DP in with Resi, because I've always considered them a commercial. I mean, they're not like Barco and Planar, but I would consider them, like, they have really nice projectors, but I would say they're more commercial oriented than they are residential.
Oh, I would agree with that, and I think I do I come at this from, I guess, the angle. I'm colored a little bit by my number of years working at the companies that I worked for in Los Angeles, I guess, to a certain extent, where this stuff is more pervasive and you just don't see it. Here in Denver is a perfect example. And so that is my background, and I do think that certainly colors my opinion on the topic. So that's a fair point.
Okay, cool. No, I was curious as to why you were throwing digital projection out, because it's not Epson, you know. Epson makes a great
there's not that many players. When you're looking for a cinema grade projector to put in a very high end home theater, I mean, there's only a couple of companies you can look at.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
So, anyways, interesting story, and definitely one I think that a lot of people were sad to see, but I don't think a ton of people were surprised.
Well, let's surprise people. And I'm going for the most outrageous segue possible. I
like where you're going with that.
Yeah. So, surprisingly enough, Amazon and Brita teamed up for Wi-Fi water pitchers.
It's an interesting offering, right? And the comments I was reading on this article, I think it's an interesting story. And the comments I was reading, I have to say, were trending in a decidedly negative direction. You know, a lot of people, one of the very first comments, the particular story that I came across was one on The Verge. And the first gentleman to comment said, well, this is just all about getting more money. And it's like, well, yeah, no kidding. That's called business. So that was a little bit silly, I thought, but really it outlined kind of the tone for a lot of the other comments I saw, which were really dismissive of this idea and saying that it's unnecessary and why on earth would we need a Wi-Fi connected water pitcher, which I think is a valid question. I think reasonable minds can disagree on that. I have to admit, from a personal perspective, taking all the technology aside and my business as a home technology professional and my business as a podcaster, I think it's an interesting product because we were just having this conversation the other night where we realized our Brita pitcher needs a new filter, and guess what? We don't have any. And I think little things like this that can solve these sort of real world problems that may not be big problems at all, but they come up and they're kind of annoying. I think it's a great story. And we've talked about this before. Most recently, we had a great discussion about Amazon on our Technology.fm fireside chat where Mike Wolf was talking about how his favorite story of 2015 was really Amazon's strategy. And I think this dash replenishment services is a very clever offering. And I thought this was an interesting story. I'm not sure that I'll be running out and buying one, but interesting all the same.
I think this highlights the difference between the home automation geeks and the people who have been in the business like you and I for so long, and what I'll just, to borrow a Harry Potter term, the muggles, like the people who have no idea how any of this stuff works. If I brought this to my wife and said, "Hey, check out this this Brita water filter," it'll just order stuff off Amazon and ship us a new filter when we need to replace it. She'd be all over it. We just had to, we just had to replace the water filter in the fridge, for the ice machine thing. And there's a little light that lights up to indicate that you need to change it. And if you happen to look up there and notice it, every 3 or 6 months or whatever, I have no idea. That little light is the only indication that you get. And then you have to go lay underneath the refrigerator and pull the thing out and find the model number on the stupid thing to order a new one. So I think this is a great idea. I wish this was built into my refrigerator. I mean, because I need filters there. I need filters for my Keurig that has filters. We just had to order those. In fact, right now we have one soaking. It's like a carbon filter. You have to soak it in the bowl overnight. That's in the kitchen right now, soaking in a bowl. So
it's a simple automation, right? I mean, we talk about the difference between control and automation, and I think one of the tricks with automation is we want our environments to react to us and anticipate the things we need before we have to somehow vocalize, and I'm using quotes there, what we need. And vocalize could be pushing a button on an app or whatever it is, going on a website and ordering something. What we want is automation. We want those things to just happen. The trick with that is that getting the nuance right can be difficult. Whereas you have something like this, it's very straightforward. The filter either needs replaced or it doesn't. And so I agree with you. I think it's a great idea because it's just automatic. There's no brain work involved. It just sort of happens in the background and it just works. I have some questions about the implementation. I wasn't totally clear on it when I read the story because for example, it says the filter is basically monitoring how much water goes through it. So it's not a time-based thing, but it's saying, okay, when approximately 40 gallons of water has passed through the filter, I'm going to trigger DRS, dash replenishment services, to send more my way. The pricing, however, mentions the refills in packs of 3. And it's like, when one filter goes bad, I don't need 3 sent to me. Right?
That's a great... Oh, man. They're going to make a ton of money off this.
So pretty soon we'll end up with just stockpiles of filters, I guess. I don't know. I guess the catch there is probably going to be something like it'll order one at a time, and so you're not buying in bulk, and therefore they can charge you more. Who knows? I just thought that was interesting. And to me, again, points to an example of where if we're really going to get to automation where we're not manually controlling things, the automation and these little sort of details that sound kind of trivial have to be thought about and have to be ironed out.
Right. I like this. This is a great idea. I'm looking forward to more things like this product, because this is not a noisy product. This doesn't like start beeping at you when it needs to be replaced and start yelling at you in the middle of the night. Like this, just maybe add something onto your shopping list, and you're on Amazon one day and you notice, oh, yeah, I guess I do need to order filters, and go ahead and toss them in the shopping cart and check out. It's a great idea. It lowers the to me, the biggest part of it lowers the pain points, like the struggle of like finding the exact filter that you need for the stupid water filter thing.
Right,
and,
like set it up once and you're done.
Yeah. I think this is a great idea. So more power to them. Hopefully it works better than my egg tray, which
we got to get our weekly egg tray mention in there.
Yeah, well,
this week in Seth's egg tray.
Well, I haven't talked about it in a while, so I thought I'd mention that. I guess it died, like the batteries died in it at one point, and I don't know if I messed it up by changing the Wi-Fi. I probably did. I changed out my Wi-Fi access point from the Comcast one to an Apple Airport Extreme, and it may have like gone crazy during that time and tried to connect to the old access thing, and the batteries died, but I never got a notification saying that anything died. So it's been off inside the fridge and actually empty because I haven't refilled it yet. So I'll get back to it. I replaced the batteries. It still turned on and worked, but it seems to have lost all the settings. So
the batteries died, and lo and behold, you're out of eggs.
I'm out of eggs, and I got to redo the setup, which remembering my password and everything, it's just like, that's more of a pain point than I want to go through to put eggs in a fridge.
Well, just to bring this Brita story full circle, it looks like the Infinity Pitcher, as they're calling it, is going to go for around $45. And I looked real quick before we started recording tonight. A normal Brita pitcher goes for about $25. So we're talking about double the price. And refills for the Infinity Pitcher 3 for around $20. So you're looking at about $6 and change per. Whereas I found refills on the normal Brita 4 for $20, so about $5 per. So they're going to get you a little bit on the refill, the filters, and of course the pitcher itself costs quite a bit more. It does run on batteries, in case you're wondering, and Brita is saying that those batteries will last for about 5 years, which I think is pretty impressive given the fact that it runs on Wi-Fi.
Yeah. 5 years is longer than the couple months that my egg tray worked. So.
Well, Seth, you mentioned Wi-Fi, and actually as the last story that we want to touch on this week, which was one that got a ton of coverage in the tech press, is the Eero home Wi-Fi system. And this is a product that's been in the works now for about a year. The big part of the story, really, and why people were talking about it, my understanding is they're going to start shipping, or they did start shipping. And so it was getting a lot of attention, and the tech press seemed generally positive about this system, whereas a lot of the comments we were reading and everything that people were kind of saying about the product in those comments was telling a little bit of a different story. So I thought it was an interesting dynamic to watch.
Well, I've got to say, the biggest thing that I love about this product on their splash, like their hero images on their website, which you'll never find just by saying the word Eero. So I'm going to spell it. It's EERO. Weird name. I tried typing it into the browser and Google a number of times, couldn't find it, but you had a link to it. I will put one in the show notes, which will be over at HomeTech.fm/101. the pictures that are on their landing page show cables coming out of the back, and you can see the cable like back there, which no other access point will do. No other branding. Everything needs power. It needs to plug in, and
right.
You never see cables. So I'm super excited. I'm like, more than anything, super stoked to see cables coming off.
Truth in marketing.
Exactly.
Interesting point. I hadn't caught that. Anyone who is not aware or maybe didn't hear about the story, this is essentially, and Seth, you might do a better job explaining this than me, but I'm going to give it a shot. It's essentially well, if you want to be cynical about it, it's a repackaged Airport Express, right? I think that was a lot of the argument, is that people were saying this is basically an Airport Express, only it's more expensive. The idea behind the Eero, though, which I think is a good one, is that it's a pre-configured system. It's essentially a combo router, wireless repeater, mesh network system with some cloud management features, and it's packaged up, put in a nice, neat box, made very easy to set up, so clients can basically purchase it, take it out of the box, plug it in, do a couple quick things on the app, and in theory, everything just works. And so that's their whole pitch, is Wi-Fi that finally works. It's a mesh network, so you don't have to have Ethernet cabling run to each of these. They come in packs of 3. And the marketing and packaging is very effective. I'm just curious to know how well they work.
Yeah. I think these are actually a little bit better than the Airport Express, more like the Airport Extreme. And the reason is, I think the Eeros do 802.11ac, which is the super fast but short range Wi-Fi. And the Airport Express only do 802.11n, which is probably what most people have in their homes today. But so I think if you're going to compare these, we have to compare them to the Airport Extremes, which do
True.
support the AC.
Yeah, and I was using that loosely. Obviously, it's a little bit different, but really, to me, that was the interesting dynamic of this story, because the tech press seemed to latch onto it and got very enamored with the design, and a lot of the articles I read were praising this thing and really making it sound like it was going to revolutionize Wi-Fi in the home, whereas a lot of the comments I read were more on the cynical side. I read a number of people sort of comparing this product to the Unify line from Ubiquiti, which I thought was a bit of a silly comparison, because as easy as they've tried to make Unify at Ubiquiti, it's still not a solution that I feel like is even targeted at an everyday consumer, let alone one that an everyday consumer is going to enjoy setting up. And
right.
So I think those comparisons were invalid, in my opinion. The much more valid comparison, which we were sort of beating around the bush on, is the comparison to Apple Airport. And I think that's where they're really going to face their big challenge, because obviously everybody knows Apple Airport really dominates that low end of the network spectrum, where you have people who are just kind of patching together their own networks, and they want to add a little bit of Wi-Fi maybe to that far corner of the house without running any wires. That is what I would say that one of the go-to solutions is. You've got your Airport Extreme as a router, your Airport Express as a repeater. We see it all the time. The problem with that is that it really ends up getting kind of cobbled together, and a lot of times, again, as simple as they've tried to make that setup, it's still not necessarily for everybody. And we'll go into a house, for instance, to look at the network, and they've got multiple devices trying to, what they thought they were doing was trying to set things up as repeaters, but maybe they've got different SSIDs set up, so they're constantly having to switch networks. Whatever it is, there's just some nuance where I think a product like Eero may be able to charge a little bit of a premium, because it is, in theory at least, more truly plug and play. And so that's where I think it's an interesting conversation to have. Is this a viable product, or is it something that isn't going to be able to compete with the Apple Airport line?
Well, I looked at the Eero price for the single Eero, and it's $199. The Apple Airport Extreme is $199. So it's the same price point. Although I like the Eero packaging better than the giant tube standing up thing of the Apple.
I don't know why they went that route.
Well, I think it's antennas, and they wanted to have a place to put a hard drive in the other one, the one with the hard drive inside of it.
That's true. And we did talk about that recently. You made a great point. We're seeing more and more of that form factor with things like Google On Hub, et cetera. So I do think there is something to that as far as the antenna design goes.
The Eero, though, the Apple, it's easy to set up. It's also easy to set up wrong, and it's also easy to not know when something is going wrong. And I think your experience in the comments you made during the show and before the show when we were talking about Apple networking products speaks to that. Like we all run across those of us who have seen more than one or two airport systems installed. We've seen more than a handful of issues that are just infuriating, to say the least. And going back to the Unify stuff, holy cow! Like this is just like not even in the park of like setting a Unify system up is not fun.
Not for the faint of heart.
No. If you go wrong, then you're back down to shell scripting and running SSH and puttying into things. No, I don't think so. This is definitely in line with what a product that Apple should be selling. Like I think this is something I could ship. My dad's always complaining about his Wi-Fi. Like in the back of the house, they have their router and modem set up, and then up at the front, he likes to sit on the porch and play around on his phone or something. And he didn't get good Wi-Fi up there, so he ended up running something underneath the house, like a cable or something, and putting in another access point. Yeah,
love it.
Yep, he's pretty good, but I could send him one of these, and he'd probably be able to set this up. And not only would it be set up correctly, securely, correctly, it would work pretty well, I think. And if that's the target market for this product, I think they hit a home run. And I think that's why we've seen so much of the tech press talking about it, because it shouldn't take a super geek to set up a wireless network this day and age. It's 2016. Right. Yeah, come on. So. This is a great little product. I hope they do well with it, and
so do I.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. I get the skepticism. I don't know if we mentioned it. I know you mentioned the price for a single unit is $199. What Eero's recommending is that you buy a 3-pack, which you save a little bit of money on a per unit level, and that's $499. So you're looking at $500. Not a small investment, but we're talking about Wi-Fi, which is really the foundation of a connected home still. And if you look and you compare it to, a nice smart thermostat, you're already at 50% of that cost. And so I think making that $500 investment into your home's technology infrastructure, if you're somebody who's not looking to get super complicated and you just need to get some better coverage in your home, a product like Eero could be a great solution. It's got the specs. I mean, there's definitely nothing major missing as far as a new Wi-Fi system. It's got AC. It's got a fast processor. One of the things that is interesting about it is the cloud monitoring. Now, there's mixed opinions on this, and some people are saying, well, they want to keep it all in the cloud so they can monitor what you're doing on the web and then sell your information to marketers. And I totally understand the concerns there, and they're valid. But I think the benefits that you get out of cloud management outweigh that, and a lot of what Eero is pitching their flag on and trying to propose as a value statement is that they're going to be proactively monitoring each of your access points. You can set things up to where things automatically reboot. If you start having issues, you can see throughput speeds and things of that nature. And so you're able to actually get a little bit of feedback. And like you said, with a product like Apple, you're not really going to get that. I mean, there's ways you can probably dig in and find it. But this really comes down to the packaging. And I don't say that in a condescending way. I say that in a way where I'm not just referring to, I should say, pretty boxes and marketing, but the actual packaging and the way that the product is presented, the user experience is presented, the monitoring, all of that. And so it really comes down to a user experience thing. And I think it looks like a neat product, and I'm with you. I wish them the best.
Yeah, I think you hit a number of things that I was hoping to touch on, and you nailed them all. This is a cool product, and 3 access points for $500 is really a heck of a deal, especially if it works as well as they say it does. And from everything that we've heard and read in the reviews, it sounds like it probably will. I'd love to get my hands on a couple of these, run them through a few tests, and see how well they hold up.
Kick the tires.
Yeah, kick the tires and see how well they work over time. Like that's really, the Nest, everybody thought that was great because it looks pretty. And now you're seeing people rip those things out because I see something daily, where somebody is having problems with the Nest unit or the Nest.
Maybe they need better Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Maybe they do.
Yeah. No, your point's well taken, though. It's really about how it performs over the long haul and how it performs when you put it out in the real world. And you've got a lot of different variables that aren't the same as you're ever going to be able to replicate in a lab or with a beta group. And that's really going to be the ultimate test. Definitely a product I'll be keeping a close eye on, though.
Maybe I can put one of these in my fridge.
Let me know how that works out for you.
Yep, I will do. All right. I think we should wrap this one up. What do you think?
Yep, I think so. Look forward to catching up with you next week. We've actually got a gentleman by the name of Alex Petreo. He is from SnapAV, and he's going to come on and join us and talk about the new Luma surveillance line. And this is SnapAV's new line of NVRs and DVRs and cameras. And we're going to, of course, get into some of the specifics about that, the product line and the hardware. But I think really, I look forward to having that conversation with Alex because I saw the Luma line out at CEDIA, and I thought there was a lot of interesting aspects to it that really tie into that conversation we're always having about how do we make home technology a little bit more friendly and a little bit easier for the everyday consumer to understand and use, but still retain a lot of that horsepower and that ability to get in and implement sophisticated solutions. And I think the Luma line really speaks to that, and so I look forward to our conversation with Alex.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to that one too. I have been a decent sized fan of their NVRs. I think one of the things that they have tried to do over the past couple of years is make the end user experience a lot better than anybody else. Like out every other NVR and DVR manufacturer is trying to do like super high end security stuff for casinos, and that just doesn't translate well down to the actual homeowner end user type installation. I think they've done a pretty good job of keeping that in mind when they develop their products. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, I think it'll be a great conversation, and I really look forward to it. Had a great time chatting with you this week, Seth. I think these were some interesting stories, and I enjoyed sharing our opinion on them. Want to thank everybody again for tuning in. We really have a lot of fun doing the show. And again, I'll say it one last time, can't believe we're past episode 100, and happy to be moving on towards episode 200. And just want to, again, encourage you, if you're a fan of the show, reach out to us on Twitter. Let us know how we're doing. We're at HomeTech Podcast. And one of the other things we would love to encourage you to do is hop over to HomeTech.fm, and on the right-hand side, you'll see an email list sign up. And we'd love to have you there. We're ramping that up in 2016 and trying to put out a real quality newsletter every week and no spam. We'd love to have you come join us. So hop over to HomeTech.fm and sign up for our email list.
Yep, definitely do that. Well, Jason, I guess I will talk to you next week.
All right. Sounds good, Seth. We'll talk soon.